Well, we want to welcome Dr. Joy Lawson Davis. She's a career educator with over 40 years of experience as a practitioner, scholar, author, and consultant. In addition to her university and district experiences, she's also served at the state level as the Virginia State Specialist for K-12 gifted education. She also holds master's and doctorate degrees in gifted education. And she has served for 5 years on the board of directors for the National Association for Gifted Children. Dr. Davis has published numerous articles, reports, book chapters, and she is also the author of an award-winning book, Bright, Talented, and Black, a guide for families of African-American gifted learners. Dr. Davis is the special populations columnist for the NAGC publication Teaching for High Potential and serves on the Gifted Child Today Advisory Board. Recently, Dr. Davis was awarded the 2019 Lifetime Achievement Award from the Supporting Emotional Needs of the Gifted organization, SENG. And we're so fortunate to have Dr. Davis provide professional development for our Henrico teachers. She's worked with several staff groups in 21 and 22, and more recently this fall with some of our 4th and 5th grade teachers. Tonight, she will focus on helping parents, caretakers, and family members strengthen their skills as advocates for their students. Attendees will also learn strategies for building achievement-oriented households for all children and how to become stronger partners with school personnel. I want to give a warm Henrico welcome to Dr. Davis.
Good afternoon, everyone. I apologize for not being on screen, and I'm on the telephone, and I'm hopeful that the signal will work well so we can get through the slides. I am so excited to continue to work with Jenna and the team in Henrico County Schools. And always pleased when a school district calls me back. So that means I did something correct the first time or two. And so I love coming to Henrico, whatever the form is, whether I'm there in person or whether we're online. But tonight, I'm focusing on power advocacy. Power advocacy. Power advocacy in terms of how parents and family members can help nurture giftedness in their young people from the early grades. I heard one of the parents say she has a new young student who is in the gifted program in the early childhood level, all of the way through our high school secondary programming. One of my favorite areas of research and writing is about parents and their role in educating gifted students. So I'm always excited to come and share with parents and then also to listen to you. So we'll have a segment about halfway through where I have a question or two that I'd like to pose to you, and the screen will come up, and then I want you to think about the questions and we'll respond. I can hear you, hope you can hear me clearly, and then if you would rather not speak out loud and just have your responses to show up in the chat room, that'll be perfectly fine. But let's go ahead and move through the slides now. Jenna, I hope you and I can stay together on this. I'm moving my slides here at home. I'm on slide 2 now.
Okay. Is that the topic slide, Dr. Davis?
Excuse me?
The topics slide?
Yes, that's slide number 2. Thank you. So these are topics, and I hope we're able to get through all of them. And if not, of course, I'm available to you to help you in any way through Jenna. I'll also provide you with my email address at the end, so you can write to me if you have questions that we didn't cover tonight. But anyway, we're going to talk about you as parents and family members as advocates for these children. We're going to spend a little time talking about achievement-oriented households. What does it take for parents to raise students? Even bright students sometimes are not always achievement-oriented. So what does it take for us as parents to raise students in a household where they can meet their potential and collaborate with schools to ensure that happens for these young people? Then we're going to talk about these strategies, how to support your gifted learners at home. I will give you some tips, actually, that a few colleagues and myself gleaned from a survey that we did, a national survey that we did a few years ago, and we wrote a chapter about it. And we ended up writing some wonderful stories that parents gave us about their experiences of raising gifted children, all over the United States, from many different cultural backgrounds. and at different age groups, early childhood, elementary, middle, secondary. And these parents had some wonderful ideas. So we captured them all and put them inside of a book, in a chapter in the book. And our chapter was called Power Advocates. We're going to the next slide now, Jenna.
Ready.
So who are advocates? What are you? If you're an advocate for your child or for some other cause, who are you? You are the person who's the champion. You're the spokesperson. You're a fighter for a cause. So sometimes when you have to fight, you may come on the other side of people who are also working with your child. And so we have to learn how to collaborate with one another, parents and teachers and educators, counselors, principals. We have to learn how to work together for the benefit of the child. The advocate is the person who knows what to say, how to say it to make a difference. What to say, how to say it, and I might add, when to say it to make a difference. And again, our focus is always on the well-being, the health, the well-being, the intellectual development, the psychosocial development of these gifted children, and helping them through all of the challenges that they have to navigate over their lifetime. So we have a great body of research, families, that helps us to understand these gifted students better. We have research that's being conducted every day by educators from all across the United States at universities and research centers. And so you ask, well, how do we know? We know because we've been checking on these children. We've been writing about them, and we've been writing about them from all different backgrounds. Children who come out of the urban areas, some from suburban areas, rural areas, students who are Black, students who are Latino, students from other cultural groups, students who live in abject poverty. We know about giftedness in poverty circumstances. And middle class students, we know about all of the different ways that students from many different backgrounds show who they are as gifted learners. And so what we need are strong advocates to help us along with educating them and nurturing them. Once again, the goal is to help them reach their full potential. Next slide.
Ready.
As I've done this work over these many years, I found that many times I'm in a position of not just being an advocate, but also being an activist. So I speak many times as someone who is sharing my concerns collectively with other people and other communities across the state, across the nation, and even globally. So when I'm asked to come to another country to speak about giftedness, I share the same message, that giftedness exists everywhere, that we have a responsibility to nurture the minds and the well-being of these young people, and that as educators and as community organizations, we should all band together to do what's best for these young people. Gifted children in particular who are underrepresented live in every community all across the United States, and they need our specific support. And so as an activist, again, I've been called out to come and speak and to share. And so I take my advocacy a little further and try to work with other people from many, many different groups and organizations. And we want to speak loudly, but we want to speak clearly, and we want to speak with a collective voice. And that's when our activism comes into play for gifted learners. Next slide.
Ready.
So these are some strategies that I gleaned from research and from reading the work of other scholars, from even talking with parents. These are some strategies that we know work for parents to create and maintain achievement-oriented households. We know that all children, regardless of what their ability level is, need to have a regular space in the household for homework, for their own things. Many of our gifted children are very particular about their things, about where they place their things and who touches their things. And so as parents and family members, even in small quarters in the household, I just want to encourage you to allow them to have a space of their own where they can go and they can do their homework, where they can go and they can read, they can go and play their instrument or draw or whatever it is that they want to do, but they have a space of their own so that they can use their imaginations and play with their imaginary friends. But they do need to have some space that they believe belongs to them. I'd also encourage you as parents, and we've learned this also from more research that we've seen lately about the most successful people. We want to encourage you to engage your students in completing household chores regularly. So that becomes they become a part of the family of, who's responsible for taking care of your goods, who's responsible for taking care of their room, who's responsible for cutting the grass. Bring them into all of this. I've known parents who have done this so the students can earn some money, put it into their own bank accounts now. So we know about parents allowing students to have their own bank accounts now so they can save their money for the future, but also maybe for something that they may want in the near future instead of far away. But do engage them. Don't treat them as if they don't have to be responsible for anything. The more responsible they are, the more disciplined they are, the more apt they are to work to their full potential. Set boundaries for your children. If you're a parent or family member that has multiple children in the family, I would always encourage parents to treat your children as individuals. Don't compare them, one sibling to the other, because that doesn't do very much for their getting along and their relationships. Each person, each child from the same family is an individual. I'm a parent. I raised 3 gifted children, 3 highly gifted children, and now I'm a nana. And one of the things that my own children, will always come back to me and say that what they appreciated now as they're adults and raising their own children, what they appreciated about my child rearing practices was that I treated them as individuals. I did my best not to compare them one to the other, not to suggest that because your brother did this, you should do that, because your sister did this, you should do that. I worked very hard to see them and their gifts, their strengths, see them who they were as individuals. And if you're in an intergenerational, multi-generational household, which is for some families appears to be a burden, but for some families it's a blessing to have other members of the household, especially grandparents who are close by. Allow those grandparents and other adult family members to help raise and nurture your gifted children. Those children can learn so much, especially from the older persons within the household, the elder persons within the family. They can learn so much. Also, I encourage parents to volunteer and allow your children to see you as a volunteer, to train and assist other parents with gifted students, especially for those parents that you believe may not be as involved, but being involved in the child's schooling, being involved in organizations or advisory councils may be good for them as well as for yourself. Ensure that self-regulation and organizational strategies are practiced as a part of your child's regular routine. One of the things that we hear people say many times about very bright people is that they tend to be either overly organized or just messy. I can't talk. I'm an artist. My office is filled with stacks of books. I know what all of my stacks are, but I do try to practice organization, and I raise my children to practice organization, especially when they get very, very busy. If they're not organized, they will begin to flounder. They will begin to not do as well. So yes, ensuring that if your students have a need for self-regulation strategies, focus on that, but also on organization, that you're not the person doing their work. Make sure they're doing their own work. They're turning their work in. They are staying on top of their assignments. It's a very bad habit to practice with children, whether they're gifted children or not, that parents would do their work for them or put their lives aside and the students aren't doing what they should be doing, and parents are turning in their science fair projects, turning in the paperwork that needs to go back to the school. Put your child in that responsible position. Many of them are very, very mature, and then on the other hand, they can be very immature. We call that asynchronous development. So we know about gifted people being that way as well. but do work to allow them to become organized. Provide opportunities for creative outlets through the fine arts, visual arts, music, drama. We know once again, from research that the arts enable students to see the world in a different way, and it causes them to become more creative. And it also allows them to see different cultural groups in a different way. So we want to, give them opportunities, not just for academics or for athletics, but also for the arts. Next slide.
Ready.
A few more strategies from our research and from our work. Actually, I just finished teaching a course at Bridges Academy, which is a school for individuals who are getting degrees to work with twice exceptional learners. And my course was a cultural diversity course. And we spent a couple of our modules talking about representational literature and how important it was for students to have materials to read about people, about their lives, fiction, nonfiction, with stories of children who were like themselves, who were like them. I actually did a session with some of your teachers in Henrico just a couple of weeks ago about multicultural literature and using bibliotherapy as a strategy for children of all ages and all genres. So I would suggest to all parents to have a library in the home. And I know sometimes books are very costly, but there are also bookstores that sell materials, sometimes for just a few pennies or a few dollars. And even on Amazon, you don't have to purchase the books at the regular price. You can sometimes purchase them at lower cost, so students can have their own library. But of course, having a library card, even in today's world with so much technology and electronic books, I always encourage parents of gifted children to make sure they have their own library card as early as possible and use that library card and allow them to go on a Saturday trip to Barnes and Nobles instead of just going shopping. Why not go to the bookstore and have an afternoon? I recently had an afternoon at the bookstore with two of my grandchildren. We had the best time. As a matter of fact, they stayed a little longer than I would have stayed, but we had a good time. And they were allowed to pick out, each of them were allowed to pick out a book that they wanted to take home. So it was really great. So to see, and they knew the whole store. They had been there before, and they knew what kinds of books they could find in what areas, and to add to their own library at home. Well, I also encourage parents to be sure that among your students' peers, your children's peers, are students who are like them, who understand their needs and know what are interested in the same kinds of things that they're interested in. It's very challenging sometimes for gifted students to be in schooling environments or in communities where the other children don't have the same interests that they have. They won't have anyone to talk to, but they need their peers. And so oftentimes parents have to create a peer situation. If the peers are available in the classroom, that's one thing, but if not, and if you need the child to have peers in the community setting, think about how those opportunities can be set up and can be arranged. Because as any child, they need to have children like themselves that they can talk to about the things they're interested in and talk about their dreams and all of the innovative ideas they have for how they're going to rule the world or change the world as they grow older. And also, oftentimes, you can allow that to happen through mentors as well. And then, of course, with the reading, have them also read and discuss biographies of many different people who became successful, but who may have had some difficulties, some challenges in their lives. It's important for our children to learn that even though they are bright and they have strong or high capabilities in one area or another, that they may not always be successful across the board. They may not always get in their class, on their report card, especially as they get older and go into more complicated coursework. They may not always get all A's when they go off to college. There may be times when they may be challenged by the coursework. It's important for them to learn to accept challenge and to accept the challenge, not by giving up, but by working harder, doing more research, asking more questions, coming together with a group of peers, having a study group. But to accept those challenges and understand that on the other end of the challenge, there is success. It's important for us to tell our own stories. I have many, many stories that I can tell my own children and share with others around not just the success that I've had in my life, but also the challenges and how those challenges made me stronger and helped me to think about things differently. I want to encourage you all as parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, to volunteer to serve on your district's gifted education advisory committee and or any other kinds of advisory committees that are being held, that are being pulled together on the district level, on the school level. They need to hear your voices. You can be there again to advocate and represent not just your child, but other gifted children whose parents may not either be able to come out to meetings or not understand how to best advocate. And so your responsibility can be not just for your own child, but for other gifted children as well. And again, as I said earlier, please be mindful to treat your children as individuals. Next slide.
Ready?
There's some unique traits that I wanted to pop into this discussion tonight and share with you. In addition to the course that I taught at Bridges around culturally diverse 2E students, I also teach a course titled Social Emotional Needs of the Gifted, and it's been my pleasure to be able to rewrite the course and to actually work with a group of young people study for their graduate degrees. And one of the things that we have to keep in mind is that when we're dealing with gifted learners, we're not just dealing with gifted people because they happen to have a more advanced mind, because they may be able to conquer, academic content more quickly than other children, or they may be more creative. What we also know about giftedness is that these children are quite unique in the way they see the world, the way they respond to the world, and how they respond to each other. We know from a long body of research that they are highly sensitive and compassionate. Not all will have these traits, but many of them do. They're concerned for how others are treated. These are the kids who get involved in social justice activities, and they're going to be advocates even at an early age because they see things and hear things that are going on in the world, and they want to get involved to see what they can do to make a difference. These children also can sense when adults are being insensitive or unfair or biased, not just teachers or people in the community, but even at home. When they hear parents using discipline strategies in one way for one child and then another way for another child, they see that and they hear that. And they know this, that they sense the injustice or the unfairness. So to keep yourself from having to explain all of that, be careful with these kids because they see and hear things a lot differently than other students their own age. They're deeply concerned, many of them are, for the treatment of animals and for the environment. Again, these children will become those who will be, who be the spokespersons, the ones who will speak up for justice issues across the board. These kids understand so much beyond their years that kind of makes them a bit argumentative. And I know that if you haven't experienced that yet, you will. Many of you will. These are the kids who are going to walk behind you in the house and continue to ask questions. Even after you think you've already asked their question, they have 10 more questions to ask because they just sometimes are not satisfied with what they hear. They will continue discussing issues and their beliefs, especially those that they feel strongly about, until they feel like they won or they have a new understanding. So what do? We allow them opportunities to keep talking and keep sharing, not to a point where everybody in the house is worn out, but do allow that kind of open questioning, that kind of open curiosity. And sometimes these kids appear to already know answers. You figure, now, how did they learn that? They may be able to explain it to you and they may not, but they do appear, many of them do, especially when they're very young, to already know the response or the answer. We also know that these are not just the kids who know the answers, but they ask a lot of questions. They ask a lot of questions. So and when I'm training teachers, I always want to encourage teachers to be sure that they are looking at these kids and responding to the multiple questions that they have, not just looking at them for the answers that they may have, but what about those questions that they pose to help us think a little further about some of the concepts and ideas we introduce to them. Because they have multiple interests, sometimes they may procrastinate because they may be working on more than one thing at a time. They'll be the ones who tend to take on more responsibility. Not always, but many times they will. They'll also be accused, not just by their friends, but by adults, of doing too much or being too much. You're just too much. And they'll hear that and they'll understand that there's something about them that makes them, in a way, maybe some ways that you don't particularly like, but maybe they don't understand how to handle being too much. They will also move from one special interest to another in very short periods of time. Many of them will stay with an idea or just something that they like doing, a passion. They may stay with it for years and years, but many of them will move around because they're so curious about so many things. Next slide.
Ready?
We do have some post-pandemic concerns about these children, and I'm beginning to hear from more and more teachers and administrators that are sharing, and they're saying that they're seeing some things happening with their kids in schools now that they're beginning to be very concerned about. And one of those is and some students who are beginning to express antisocial behaviors. They say that those behaviors are on the rise. We encourage parents and teachers, counselors to hold regular conversations and watch for any signs of changes in behavior, any signs of changes in behavior. Watch out for signs of bullying, either where your child is being bullied or maybe the perpetrator of the bullying. So we want to be careful and have those conversations and teach our children that that is not the most empathetic way for them to carry themselves. Engage students in service activities so they can learn how to help others and actually, like I said earlier, perhaps even see you in the role of someone volunteering to serve others. Ensure that teachers are aware of any major changes at home since before the pandemic. Since the pandemic, did anything happen differently during the pandemic in the home environment? Did things change significantly that you think may have impacted your child in the way they respond to the world, the way they're responding to you or maybe to others? Did they lose friends because some friends moved to another part of the town or the city or maybe to another part of the country? Did they lose friends because they moved from one school to another? Be on the alert for change. Some gifted learners are very good at adapting to change. Others are not very good at all. So we want to be very, very careful of that. Next slide.
Ready?
Okay, so this is a group activity. This is where I thought maybe we take a little time, and I don't know how many of you are there, but I really would like to hear from you. Let's turn to the next slide, Jenna.
Okay.
There's strategies. I know that as a parent, many of you may be young parents, maybe you've raised children before this time that you're involved in this program. And maybe for you, maybe this is brand new, or maybe you remember things that your parents did that helped you along the way. So I just want you to think about for a moment, just look at this list, and then you can respond to whichever question you like to. What are some strategies that you've used to address antisocial behaviors? What have you used or what have you done to be a stronger advocate for your child or others, that you happen to be able to go to a meeting and speak up or speak to a teacher about something? How did you increase your child's achievement when you see that they are not performing as they should? Is there something special or particular that you did at home that may be helpful to another parent who's listening? What have you done to increase the amount of time your child reads? What we do know from very sound research is that students who read do better across the board, across the content areas in math and science and history and the humanities. They do better. And so we want to encourage students to continue to read. Many of them start out as great readers when they're young, and then something happens. Maybe other friends are not reading as much, or maybe they don't find the books they like to read. But I want to encourage you to keep your gifted children reading. Keep them reading. Provide the books, provide the library card, ensure that they're reading at school, but at home you have the control. You can have them reading at home as well. And then maybe what are some things that you've done to provide rewards or praise for outcomes? Maybe for grades that may have increased or improved, maybe for participation in a science fair, or maybe being on a chess team and accomplishing a goal that they set for themselves, something having to do with the arts or leadership. What have you done? So just look at those if you would. And anybody can start talking at any time. Just unmute your mics and just go ahead and begin sharing. If you could just tell me how old your child is when you speak, and then just answer any of those questions if you would. Or is there something else you'd like to share? Maybe it doesn't respond to a question here. Maybe you have a question of your own, or you'd like to share something that you've done to help your gifted child at home. I can't see you, so I can't call your names out. Go ahead.
We also have the option to use the chat if anyone feels more comfortable using the chat to respond.
Okay, that'd be great. And if you could read their response, that would be fine. You don't have to tell us the name. You can just, if you'd like to read that aloud, that'd be fine.
All right. It doesn't look like we have anything just yet, but we can see if anyone decides to share, then I can unmute and read out what we have.
Okay. Let's keep moving then. All right. Next slide.
Ready?
Yes. So earlier I told you all that myself and two other colleagues, we had interviewed, and then we asked for tips from parents from all over the country and what do they do at home with their gifted kids. And these are some of the tips that they actually gave us, and we included them in a chapter in a book. I'll show you the book cover before we finish up tonight. But these are some of the tips that came from these parents. I think all total, without duplication, I think we probably had about 25, 30 tips that were shared with us from parents. Many of them were duplications, but most parents there were some parents who were saying that as a family member, as a parent, you have to know your child's strengths. And elaborating, I remember parents talking about sometimes parents know that their child may have a strength, but they don't recall or don't pay attention to the areas that need support. Not necessarily a weakness, but an area that needs support. But then there are other parents who may not even know or realize that they have an artist in the household, for example, or that they have someone in the household who not only likes to read books, but would one day like to become an author. So as parents, we have to have conversations and watch our children to see what kinds of things you believe are on their minds if they don't speak out, if they're kind of quiet about it. Know their strengths. And the purpose for that is so that not only can you have a better relationship with your child, but you can also advocate for your child when they go into the school. You as a person who can speak up for them can be sure that what they're being provided with in terms of instruction matches with their strengths as well. We are in our field, we are really battling right now with school districts across the nation who are threatening to dismantle gifted programs because they're suggesting that gifted children will make it anyway. They don't need instruction, but that's not true. It's only fair for these children, no matter what level of understanding they go into school with, that they have an opportunity to grow as well. And so what we want for them is to be challenged in the areas of their strengths so that they can also continue to grow. And as parents of these young people, be informed. If the school material that comes home is a material that you need to utilize in order to make a good decision for your child, use that material. But if it's not all that you need, send an email or contact someone in the school. Talk to the teacher. Talk to the gifted coordinator. I'm sure they have many vehicles that you can utilize to have conversations. They have a great staff there in Henrico County that can help you if you are not clear about some of the policies, about some of the practices, about what curriculum students will be exposed to. Ask questions. So you have, as a parent, have to take responsibility for being informed and not always wait for the school personnel to inform you. And then again, find other champions in the school district who support and understand giftedness. And while I say that, I also need to help us understand that not all educational personnel understand and support giftedness. There are many people who don't believe in our programming, who don't believe in the types of work that we do, the research that we do. As I mentioned earlier, there may be some who not only don't believe it, but may also suggest that that we shouldn't be doing what we do for gifted learners, that we should devote those funds to other students in the schools. But we know better. We know better. Again, I've been doing this for a long time. I have colleagues all around the world who do this great work, and I believe that we will continue to have these children are coming into our schools every day. Every day, they're being born into somebody's family every day, and so we have to have people who support and understand them. As parents, these other folks told us to tell you never give up on your child. It's not always going to be an easy road. Just because your child is bright does not mean it's going to be easy. As a matter of fact, I know from reading about this and from having personal experiences, sometimes gifted children can be some of the more difficult ones because we're not always able to keep up with all the changes that may occur, and also because of some of the things that they may need to do and want to do may be beyond our finances as a family. And so there's some challenges that you may have there, but don't give up on your child. Continue to seek out resources, continue to seek out champions and other advocates to help you out. As a family member, I encourage you to, as these family members told us, to please tell them to keep records on your child, on any assessments that are done, any awards, gather that data, keep the records. Why? Because at some point, if you happen to leave the school district or maybe go to another school, you may need to advocate for your child all over again. In Virginia, across the nation, we don't have what are called reciprocal agreements. And so in some cases, students who may be identified as gifted in one school district goes to another district, they may have to go through a process of assessment all over again. And if you have some records, it would help the school personnel in the new district to make a better decision about your child and whether or not they have a need for the services that are being provided. Learn your state laws and your local policies. Learn your state laws and your local policies. And this one I love from one of the moms said, tell your children that they are not alone and to never be afraid to let their beautiful light shine. Many times gifted children express loneliness and express a sense of isolation. And because again, if the environment that they're in, there may not be other students like them, and sometimes they are the brunt of bullying, it's difficult for them. It's challenging for them. So we encourage you, these parents wrote these beautiful notes to us to tell you to tell your children that they are not alone and never be afraid to let their beautiful light shine. Next slide.
Ready?
I would like
There
to
are some
jump in.
organizations.
We have someone to respond to you, Dr. Davis, in the chat.
Go ahead.
So it says, our son has always been an avid reader, and we have supported him by getting reading materials he's interested in. They've always read to him a lot, and they were joking, saying that they think sometimes he might have taken advantage of them reading to him so much, but they are active in continuously reading. So thank you for that.
Excellent. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah, sometimes they do because they like to hear you read, and that gives them a chance to sit back and relax a little bit. But yes, I'm so proud of you for continuing to keep him reading, especially sometimes in our society with boys, because it's not something that boys are encouraged to do, and oftentimes it becomes difficult even in the social setting for a boy who loves to read. And so we encourage you and have you to encourage other parents as well. Thank you so much for sharing that. There are some additional resources that national organizations that I wanted to share with you all. Of course, we all know about the National Association for Gifted Children. It's our national organization that is the flagship organization, as we say, for gifted children and parents and teachers. You can go to their website. Some of the material is free. In some cases, you may have to pay a membership. The parent membership is very, very inexpensive, though. The social emotional needs of the gifted focuses primarily, as the name says, on supporting emotional needs of the gifted, social emotional needs of the gifted. Bridges to East Center is relatively new. Bridges also has a grad program now. That's the organization that I was speaking of, that I work with teaching a course. The Damon Institute for the Highly Gifted is really a powerful organization. They post articles, and if you go to their website, they'll actually have articles that you can read and you can download. And I would say the same about many of the different organizations that support gifted children. The Hoagies, if you go to the Hoagies website, just like the sandwich, Hoagies, Hoagies, actually has a number of website pages that'll link you to pretty much anything having to do with gifted in the United States. I didn't put that on here. And of course, the College of William & Mary has a Center for Gifted Education. It's still functioning, still operational. The center's director is Dr. Tracy Cross. And Tracy is, in our field, one of those persons who has written, who's a prolific writer when it comes to the social, emotional, psychosocial needs of gifted children. So we're very, very pleased to have him at this center. They have Saturday morning programs. They have summertime programs. They're doing virtual for this fall. They're doing virtual programming. And later on, I think they'll be going back to face-to-face programming. And the University of Virginia also has a long and well-known program for gifted students. On Facebook, I'd encourage you to join me. I have a couple of pages, but this one page, I post any program materials that I get from organizational leaders, stories about gifted children and their families, articles, blogs that they've written, interviews, anything that I can find that I know will be helpful to parents and advocates of gifted students. I will post on that particular page on Facebook. Next slide. I think we're just about done. Okay. This slide, again, just kind of wraps it up. It tells us that parents can be crucial allies in helping schools recognize the unique psychosocial needs of diverse gifted students, and I would say all gifted students. Parents, the school district needs you to help support their message to the other school personnel, to the officials, the administrators. They need you to help support and advocate and speak up for the needs of gifted children. Next slide.
Ready?
Okay. And so here, I want to say thank you all, first of all. And I've given you my email address and my Twitter handle. I guess that's what it's called. But I do try to, once again, speak with others on Twitter about information and messaging around gifted education. The book with the turquoise background was one that I co-edited with my friend Deb Douglas back in the fall, in September of 2021. And it's a book with chapters that are written by experts across many different population groups, and it is powerful. It is powerful. It's all about how we can empower gifted students so that they can become advocates for themselves. We even have one chapter in the book written by a group of gifted students out of Florida. And I think you will enjoy reading that as well as all the other chapters in our book. And then come December 1, I will have a second edition of Bright, Talented, and Black, a guide for families of Black gifted learners. We were scheduled to do this earlier, but we had a few glitches with the second edition. And but I just spoke to my publisher earlier this week, and we're on track for a release date of December 1. So I'm very excited about that. And if you go online if you go to Amazon, you can actually pre-order a copy, and they'll get it to you when the books are released. But again, I enjoy always coming to Henrico. I am sorry about the technology glitch, about my not being able to get into Microsoft Teams. But I thank you so much, Alexis and Jana and your other staff for being patient with me and allowing me to come to your family group by telephone. Thank you all so much. Any questions? Anybody have questions that I can answer at this time?
Thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Davis. I really appreciate you coming in, sharing with our families, and sharing your expertise with us.